Alrighty, so Pokemon Go is been something that's been around for over 6 years now, and I wrote this panel to kind of cover every level of play experience. If I'm saying things that seem very obvious to you, there's somebody in the room, or there hopefully is somebody watching the video later who didn't really think about whatever it is I'm talking about. And then I'll try to scale it up as best I can. The first thing I did when I was writing this panel was bounce it off of a bunch of players that are definitely considered themselves as casual, and just staggeringly different results from what they already knew. So starting off with the most important thing in the game, and that is get your free coins. And it's surprising just how many reasonably good players just don't bother taking gyms. You get 50 coins a day, so it takes you 4 days to get a storage upgrade, and you're going to need that storage upgrade for anything else you want to do in the game. Takes about 1 month to get enough coins to get one of the big bundles. And while I won't discuss purchasing bundles, because it really is what you want out of the game. Do you want more raid passes, or do you want more incubators, or do you really want that star piece or lucky egg? I would love to sit here and say, yeah, this is the bundle that you should look for, and don't take anything less, but it really is what you need out of it. But you can't get those bundles unless you're going and getting those free 50 coins every day. That's not to say that you shouldn't spend money on the game ever. I definitely have purchased a GoFest ticket before. But the free coins are there for, they're free. Make use of them. And I that storage space is really, really important. The item storage space, a little less than the Pokemon storage space, but you're going to run out of storage really quick when you start collecting shinies, or you start collecting perfect things, or you start needing to fill out different areas of battling, or if you want one of everything in its shadow form and purified form and all of their costumes. If anyone from Niantic is out there, please let me evolve my costume Pokemon again. Yeah, if anyone's out there from Niantic, give me the option to get unlimited Pokecoins from my dailies again. That was really, really nice way back in the day. No, it's a much more efficient system to do the 50 a day than it is to claim when you want to. But we won't go back to that just yet. So if you are the kind of person who is specifically looking for 100%, if you're using them either because you really want to battle or because you just like to collect them, you got a 1 in 4,096 odds of getting a perfect Pokemon. Compared to your average shiny rate, which is about a 1 in 200, the odds seem kind of reversed from the main series games. So your best bet is to do shadows and shadows and shadows and shadows if the Pokemon you're hunting exists, because when you purify, everybody knows that it gets +2 to each stat. But that 1 in 4,096 suddenly drops down to less than 1 in 500, because you suddenly have I think 18 chances that if you're including that perfect 15, 15, 15. Yeah, so you're actually even lower than that. It's sitting at less than 1 in 300. And whether or not that's useful to you definitely matters on your personal preferences. Okay, why is my slide not advancing? There we go. So if you're trying to level up those Pokemon for battle, you're going to need to level up your trainer first, because you can only have things that are as strong as you are. In essence, you're limited to your trainer level +2. However, once you hit level 40, you are able to power anything you have up to level 50. and you cannot start earning XL candy in most situations until you hit level 40. You can hit level 40 in exactly 90 days using this one trick. And I know this sounds super clickbaity, but it works. The math checks out almost perfectly. And that is add friends. If you have 100 active friends and you send them a gift every single day, you are going to hit level 40 in exactly 90 days, provided that you don't do anything else. So you'll hit it faster if you do other things. So every time you send a gift, you get 200 experience points. Every time you spin a stop or gym, you're getting 100 experience points as well. So that's 30,000 a day. The first time you interact with a friend is 3,000. The 7th time you interact with a friend, once per day of course, is 10,000. 30 days of interacting with your friend is 50,000. 90 days is 100,000. So the most efficient way is to get to day 30 and then unfriend them and add somebody else. But that doesn't seem as fun as just working on that best friend medal. So your choice, whether or not you're really grinding it or you're going to actually remain friends with these people. That's up to you. But if you only friend people and send them a gift every day, your gift cap is 100, although your friend cap is 400. So if you've got active friends who are actually opening your gifts, you can get to the point where you can't send everybody a gift, and I am definitely there myself. That being said, after the panel, I'd love to add anybody who would like a gift almost every day. You're going to want to find somewhere that has at least 5 stops that you can be working on other stuff and just have that going in the background. Or if you want to hatch some eggs, find a park that has a nice loop. Personally, I've got one underneath a drawbridge that has 10 stops in exactly a 5-minute walk, which is how long it takes to reset the stop. So it takes me 50 minutes to knock it out, and I'm able to get some exercise in while I'm doing it. If you're really not in the person-to-person interaction mood, you get experience doing almost everything in the game. There's a couple things here or there that don't give you experience, and I think pretty much that list consists of player versus player. But you catch a Pokemon, that's 100 right there. You get an extra 20 or 100 for nice and great throws respectively. But if you can work on that excellent throw, you get 1,000 experience points per excellent throw. This is especially useful during triple catch experience points community days, the last one being Oshawott. And I think Bulbasaur coming up next weekend is a bonus catch experience day, but don't hold me to that. It is? Fantastic. Yeah, so if you can find a couple Bulbasaurs around and get that practice in, getting those excellent throws, pop that lucky egg, you can earn 500,000 experience points in an hour. It's only slightly exaggerating. Like, you can really knock it out. Specifically during Oshawott Community Day, in that 6 hours that I was playing it, I was able to get 1.5 million just from catches. Like, I didn't have any best friends happen during that community day. More important for Stardust, but every time you feed a berry at a gym is 50 experience points. So if there's a full gym, that's 3,000. That's not too bad for something that doesn't take longer than a minute and a half. Pokestops are 100, so that really adds up when you're going and hunting those gifts. 250 experience points for each new Pokestop. And then there's other hidden bonuses for if you've spun X unique Pokestops in a certain time span, or it's your 10th new Pokestop since the last time you got that bonus. And those ones aren't as well documented online, but you can find some really cool ones like that. It's not really time efficient, but knocking Pokemon out of a gym is pretty good for earning some experience points. better to be catching or better to be spinning stops, but you got to knock out some gyms to get those coins anyway, so it's not terrible. I just wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to experience point farm. Hatching eggs is not time efficient or coin efficient. Buying incubators is great if you're trying to collect things that can only be found in eggs, or if you're trying to get event Pokemon, or if you really don't like to do those 12-kilometer eggs one at a time. Like, incubators are useful, and you definitely get stuff out of hatching eggs, but they are not efficient for experience points in the slightest. Raiding, I don't recommend as a method on grinding out experience points. Doing your daily raid is absolutely an amazing idea. Buy those raid passes when you're able to, because some of the best Pokemon are in raids, and while I was talking about that 100 collecting earlier, you're guaranteed to at least have a 10-10-10 out of that 15-15-15. So that's cutting the number of possible combinations by a third right out the gate. So you can definitely abuse rating for other bonuses. Experience points is just not one of them. 5-star and Mega Raids do yield 10,000 experience points, which is not bad. And if you can chain 2 or 3 of them together, you can use a lucky egg to get a decent chunk of experience points. But I would actually recommend saving your lucky eggs for something a little less common, and that is evolving Pokemon is going to be your other, just gold rush of experience points. There are none during January, but occasionally, and I think there are actually 2 in October, occasionally they'll do, during the spotlight hours, double experience points for evolving Pokemon. And that has very little impact on a spotlight hour, and I always question when they do it, because you're supposed to be catching the spotlight Pokemon, right? Well, if you don't like the spotlight Pokemon, and it's a double experience point, and you use that lucky egg for quadruple experience points, you can earn over 500,000 experience points just from evolving during that hour, because every Pokemon you evolve has been bumped up to 1,000 experience points. Back when the game started, it was only 500. Your best targets for Pokemon to hoard to evolve later are going to be Caterpie, Weedle, Pidgey, Pidove, Wurmple, and Whismur. All of the above are 12 candy Pokemon. You evolve them once, you trash them before evolving them fully. You get a candy back when you evolve them, you get a candy back when you trash them. If you Pinette Berry them when you're catching them in the wild, you've basically done an evolve for one Pokemon that you've caught. Because you're getting 6 candy off of it the first time. 7. No, you're getting 2 evolves for every 3 that you catch, which is still really great. The other ones that I would recommend is, if you have them from the event going on right now, Geodudes and Machops are absolutely wonderful. They're not as good, but you can get that double evolution out of them. Yes, they're going to cost you 25 candy the first time, but you all have a friend here. Nobody here is playing completely solo, probably. And so if you trade that Machop and you trade that Geodude, then once you've evolved them into Graveler and Machoke, respectively, they're still marked as traded. So you can evolve them into Machamp and Golem for free. So it's going to cost you that 25 candy, which is not as efficient as the 12 candy, but you're getting double the evolutions out of it at the low cost of 100 Stardust. So that's really, really efficient when you're trying to level up, even if there isn't a spotlight hour to do so. But yeah, if you can get those Pumpkaboo and Phantoms from back in the Halloween event, definitely worth doing. Now, once you've gotten your levels, if you go too quickly, you're just not going to have the Stardust to level up everything, and you're not going to have the candy to evolve everything. So for what you really want to level up is kind of up to you. If you're a player versus player, that's going to be based on the metagame you want to play. Do you care about Great League? Do you care about Ultra? Do you care about Master? And I'm not going to sit here and go through every possible team combination because it really comes down to the things that you have. If you have a really great Togekiss, which is a phenomenal Pokemon in many leagues, you might not want to be leveling up your other fairy or flying types. You would probably want to focus on an ice type because of the prevalence of dragons. So there's just too much stipulation there, so I'm not going to go into everything. But the one personal pick that if you're going to level up one Pokemon and like put effort into one Pokemon for player versus player, get a good Swampert. It's the one thing I would say, yeah, you absolutely need to get this for a team. Which league you want to use it in is up to you, but use that super TM that you can only get like once every couple of months to get it Hydro Cannon and give it its ground quick move, because it is the fastest shield breaker that people will actually shield against. If you are trying to get into PvP, I would definitely recommend looking at a couple of guides, but it is complex to say the least. That being said, the best way to get Stardust is PvP. During a season, get your level up as high as you can, and then once you've gotten to level 10 or once you've gotten to level 20 in the rankings, you don't have to keep trying to level up. Get somewhere you're comfortable with, where you've hit a wall, and then use all of your free player versus players of the day and just throw a team of Magikarp or throw a team of Pidgey and just give somebody else the win. You get your 5 losses, and yes, it kind of makes your rating go down, but if you're not really a PvP player, who cares about the rating? And then, once you've done your 5 losses, you still get to collect several thousand Stardust. Yes, you have to put a little bit of work in to get up there in the first place, and yes, it does take a little bit of time, but thankfully it's one of those things where you can just kind of mindlessly tap while you're working on something else. It's not like you're paying attention to the battle because you're trying to give away the win. But that's going to be your most effective way to get Stardust. The second most effective way to get Stardust is to just catch absolutely everything. And the third most effective way to get Stardust is to hatch things. You can really rack up Stardust doing the hatching. Specifically, I recommend doing it doing 7Ks if you're going to try to do Stardust hatching, because you can control them. Whenever you're spinning a stop, you don't know if you're going to get a 2 or a 10, and it can take some time to really make those incubators effective. Who wants to use a bonus incubator on a 2-kilometer egg? The last thing I would say for Stardust is opening gifts. You can make quite a bit of Stardust opening your 20 gifts of the day. Unfortunately, you are limited to 20 gifts of the day, and it is RNG. So you can get 0 dust opening gifts, but you can also get 200 or 300 dust out of each of those gifts that you're opening. So it's questionable how efficient it is, but worth noting. As for battling that isn't player versus player, so if you're battling Team Rocket stuff because there's no level cap on when you're battling Team Rocket, or if you're trying to take down gyms, or if you're trying to do raids, there's 4 whales, wow. There's 4 tiers from whale down to honorable mention for every type of Pokemon that you might want to be using. Starting with the very simple normal typing. If you have them and you have a good one, Regigigas and Meloetta are going to be what I would consider your whale tier. Now, no, you don't have to be the kind of person who put a ton of money into buying remote raid passes to do a ton of Regigigas raids. You could get lucky and get a good Regigigas on your first or second raid. So it's not really fair to say that something is unobtainable by anybody. It's just the likelihood that you have a good one is what makes something whale tier. Alternatively, how easy it is to put candy into it. So if you have a good Meloetta, if you got really lucky and have a good Meloetta, you can't farm any candy. And walking it's going to take you 20 kilometers to get one candy. So yeah, you can use rare candy, but you have to pick and choose what you're putting your rare candy into, so that's another reason why that's going to make it up to your whale form. Your standard normal types are going to be Mega Lopunny. Mega Pokemon are going to be most of the standards for the list because they are obtainable. You're just going to have to wait for the event to come around. However, once you have Mega evolved a species, every time you walk it for that candy, it is going to get you, I want to say 15 Mega Energy, so you can farm Mega Energy once you have gotten that Mega Pokemon. So definitely make sure to get that Mega Aerodactyl now while you can, and then once you have it, and once you have Mega Evolved an Aerodactyl, you don't have to worry about it for later when you want to Mega Evolve a different Aerodactyl. You've got the means to that energy even when it's out of season. My other normal standard pick is Porygon Z. It is less obtainable currently. They haven't done a good Porygon event in a while, but it's not completely unobtainable. The honorable mentions for normal are going to be your Slacking, your Blissey, your Snorlax. They aren't good for rating because they're tanks. You want things that are fast and doing higher damage per second. But they're worth leveling up because they're just the best things to pop in gyms. I don't have any really budget normal Pokemon. If you're trying to power up a budget Pokemon, normal's just not going to be good enough. It's not strong against anything. It's there. So for water, I actually am going to list Mega Gyarados as your whale Pokemon. Now, Mega, I said, would be the standards, and going to break the mold on that immediately, because Gyarados itself is a little harder to obtain. There have been multiple Magikarp events. Magikarp is a 1 kilometer walking Pokemon for its candy. So Gyarados is obtainable, and they do occasionally throw it in raids, so you could just get one flat out. But if you are a returning player as opposed to a casual player, it's going to be much harder to obtain. Likewise, Shadow Gyarados, if you can get a really good Shadow Gyarados, Shadow Magikarp Rocket members are pretty rare. You're going to find them about half as often as you find the really uber difficult Shadow members, the ones that give you the Snorlaxes or the Dragonairs. But they do exist out there, and if you can get a really good Shadow Gyarados, it can do so much for you as a water type attacker. Your standard Pokemon are going to be your Shadow Swampert. As I said, Swampert's amazing, and even in player versus environment, Swampert does get a lot done. The regular one's still a pretty good one to have, but it's just not doing as much damage as that Shadow one is. Blastoise, if you can get a Mega Blastoise, the Mega Energy for Blastoise, Charizard, and Venusaur is always out there as an uncommon to rare quest, depending on the season. Much more common when there is not an event going on. If you are an older player, you probably have a couple of Kyogres. Newer players are going to have a very hard time getting a Kyogre. You can get one traded to you as a nice lucky trade, but they haven't been in raids in quite some time, and I don't see them on the horizon with the events that they have been announcing. Your budget water types are going to be your Empoleons and your Samurats, although they have to have the community day to move to be useful. And then Clawitzer. Clawitzer can do a decent amount of damage per second output as a as a first stage evolution. Sorry, I forgot Basic was part of that. And then I would not use Vaporeon anymore, although back in the day when it was only Gen 1, Vaporeon was absolutely a haymaker. It really has just fallen out of favor in the ability to do damage. Feraligatr as a starter is completely lacking in the stats or dual typing that make it worth running. And Shadow Sharpedo, a while ago they made Shadow Carvanha's really easy to obtain. So you might have a good Shadow Sharpedo that's worth leveling up if you don't have a better water option. But you should have a better water option because water Pokemon are so abundant. For your grass types, if you got lucky and you got a really good Zarude, you are golden. Level it up, put all your rare candy into it. It's going to be there as a good grass type attacker, and then you also get the bonus of the dark type attacker. But if not, and you can find Shadow Turtwigs, Shadow Torterra is the top of the charts. For your standard picks for grass, Shadow Venusaur, or regular Mega Venusaur, because you can't Mega Evolve Shadow Pokemon. And then Tangrowth, which is admittedly closer to Whale type because Tangela is so rare these days, but occasionally it'll pop up during an event. So Tangrowth is a standard pick if you are a casual player who's just really trying to ramp up their game. Your budget picks here are Mega Abomasnow, although you're better off using a different Mega, both in accessibility. Venusaur's just easier to get energy for, and also, like, it's just better. But your other budget pick is a non-Mega Venusaur. Venusaur can do quite a bit of damage in its normal range. Honorable mentions for grass types. Anything else that you sit there and think, oh, hey, that's a grass type I know. Your Exegutors, your other starters. Grass types are pretty solid across the board for the most part. Yeah, you've got your Sunfloras that are completely useless, but if you're thinking about a grass type that you would have actually used in a main series game, it's got decent stats. For your fire types, if you can get a good Chandelure, go for it. That is absolutely what I suggest. Although recently, Reshiram, fantastic. If you can get anything, I would say anything 15, 13, 13 or better for Reshiram, you've got the best fire attacker in the game. It will just take a lot of walking or a lot of rare candies and a lot of Stardust to get it to the point where it's that powerhouse, but definitely worth picking up. Entei and Moltres are also okay picks, especially if you can have a shadow version of them, but they haven't been in raids in quite some time. My standard fire pick is Charizard, specifically Mega Y, but regular Charizard as well is a good pick. I would not pick Mega X as a fire type attacker, though it is still plenty useful. Shadow Arcanine, I have not seen a Shadow Growlithe in a while, so they might have rotated it out, but I think it's still obtainable. And Heatran, which is a current raid Pokemon, which is why I dropped it down to standard, because it is currently obtainable and getting candy for it is very easy right now. Though if you are watching back this video later, that may no longer be the case. Your budget fire type is going to be Mega Houndoom. Again, you should be using a better Mega Pokemon than that. And then Emboar and Darmanitan are both readily obtainable, either in Emboar's case because there was a community day recently, but they also like letting starters be seen in the wild, or Darmanitan because you can get the candy easier because they like to do focus on both versions of Darumaka occasionally. So getting candy for it is something that should be relatively easy to do. Yeah, the honorable mentions are Entei and Moltres, because if you don't have the Shadow version, they're still decent. It's just been a while since we've been able to get them. Bug-type Pokemon are probably what gave me the most headache writing this panel. It's really sad when Skizor is your whale Pokemon, specifically a Shadow version. Genesect is fantastic, and it doesn't really matter what drive you're using. You can get any Genesect when they're around. Genesect is coming back soon, so if you need a Bug-type attacker for some reason, and I don't know why you would, but if you do, go get yourself that Genesect. Heracross, if you can regionally obtain it, is phenomenal as well. Your standard Bug-type Pokemon? Well, actually, I would say your Subwhale. Like, they're obtainable, but they're just not efficient to obtain. Pinsir, Durant. Durant exists everywhere, but, like, getting a good one? And then Skizor as well. Like, when's the last time you actually got a good Scyther? Probably been a while. But Mega Beedrill is solid if you actually need a Bug-type attacker for some reason. The only reason in the game I can think that you want a Bug-type is for doing like an Exeggutor raid. Getting that double bonus. Your budget ones are Butterfree and Beedrill. Yanmega I listed it as standard, but like Yanmega could be budget. Yanma has been a lot more prevalent in the wild recently. But if you're using a bug type, you should be using a fire type or a dark type. Like there's almost no reason to be using bug ever. Kind of sucks, unfortunately, because there are some really cool bug Pokemon out there. Poison. The whale for poison is any shadow poison type. They're all really, really solid, and the differentiation between how much damage they can do is minimal. That being said, poison shadow Pokemon are not common shadow Pokemon, not recently at least. Your standard poison, this is where you really want to put those Beedrills. Roserade, who I did not mention during the grass section. And then any like not so great stat shadow poison ones that you can get a hold of would go into standard. Like just powering up anything shadow for poison is gonna be really helpful. Your budget options are Victory Bell, Skunk Tank, Muck, Alolan Muck, Vileplume, and your honorable mentions are going to be Scolipede because they are not common enough, and then Drapion, Tentacruel, and Nidoqueen. You should not be using Nidoking as a poison type attacker ever. For flying, you've got Rayquaza, which was very prevalent a while back, but if you weren't playing during it, and it's going to be a lot harder to obtain now. So Rayquaza is probably your best flying type attacker in the game. I would actually set it up with a flying moveset over a dragon moveset every day of the week. And then Braviary, which I listed as a whale because it's harder to obtain. But if you're doing well in player versus player, it has been a reward for quite some time. It cycles in and out. And I've been hatching a ton. I've been hatching a ton of its pre-evolution. So it might not actually be whale status. I'm not positive. Your standard is going to be Mega Pidgeot, if you can. It's super easy to get the candy for. It's super easy to attain a good one. If it wasn't the best stat-wise for your non-whale, I would have listed it as budget because of how easy it is to evolve, but because of how easy it is to obtain a good one and power up, rather. But if you've got a Sky Attack Moltres, that's your other standard attacker. Not quite whale because it's not, once you get it to level 40, you don't need to put extra large candy into it, and you don't even need to get it to 40. But getting that Sky Attack on it is a little more difficult. Probably one of those times where I'd say, yeah, use that Super TM that you only get once in a while. Like, Sky Attack would be worth it. Your budget flying types are Staraptor, which is the discount Pidgeot, and Honchkrow. But it's just not great, so And flying as a type overall is not all that great. It's not all that useful. It's got its perks, but again, you're going to be wanting to use other types over it. If you can't get any of the above, Yveltal, you shouldn't be using it as a flyer. You really shouldn't. And Unfezant, which is super, super easy to obtain these days. They've made Pidove much easier to obtain. For your ground types, If you can get a shadow, and these ones are common shadows, so you might be able to. Mamoswine is going to be your good ground type shadow Pokemon. Rhyperior is going to be your less easy to obtain shadow Pokemon. I haven't seen a shadow Rhyhorn in at least 6 months. Your standard ground types are going to be your Garchomp, which I would have put as a whale, but they keep pushing Gibble as a bonus that they're giving out for different things. So Garchomp is becoming more and more obtainable, and there was the community day, so very obtainable. Either form of Landorus, if you can get a hold of them. They start pretty strong. You don't have to put too much Stardust or candy into them to make them worthwhile as an attacker. Excadrill is fantastic. It's lacking a little behind everything else I've mentioned so far. But in the end, Rhyperior is superior. If you can get a solid Rhyperior, that's exactly what you want to be leveling up. And Steel is so prevalent as a gym defender that Ground is going to be one of those top typings that you really want. Still not as good as Fire, but in terms of overall use, but Ground is really good there. Budget ones for that are going to be a regular Groudon. You can just leave it at level 25. Leave it weather boosted. You don't put anything into it, and it's going to be a solid attacker for when you got nothing else. And then your normal Mamoswine, which is very easy to obtain during these winter months. I listed Flygon and Donphan as honorable mentions, but they just don't do enough. And then Swampert, which I always say get a Swampert. Like, give that Swampert that Earthquake as its bonus move. Use it when you've when you don't have something else you want to use. Like, it gets there. It's good. Always Swampert. For your rock types again, you really want that Rhyperior. Shadow if you can get it. Shadow Tyranitar if you can get it. And then Rampardos I also listed as the really difficult one to obtain. It's not entirely impossible to obtain, but Craniados is not something I see all too often, and I have been specifically hunting it during events that it shows up and have not gotten one that's even remotely worthwhile. So I listed it higher, but that might be personal bias. Your standard ones are going to be regular Tyranitar, regular Rhyperior, or Terrakion, though with rock typing, interestingly enough, just the sheer drop-off of the amount of damage that you can do with a standard versus a shadow. I don't know exactly why rock has that much of a gap, but rock has a really huge gap. Your budget option is going to be Aggron, though I do not recommend powering up an Aggron ever, as it will constantly suggest it as a gym attacker, and it just doesn't do enough damage, and it's so time inefficient. Honorable mentions, any fossil type. They can do decent damage, but they're inconsistent to obtain. Your electric listing, if you can get a good Zekrom, there was that event just a couple months ago, just last month actually. Zekrom's fantastic, best electric attacker in the game. Otherwise, you're going to want to go with a Shadow Zapdos or Shadow Raikou if you got lucky with those events, if you got lucky and were able to play back in those events. And then Therian form Thundurus, I would say, is definitely worthwhile, but only Therian form. Your standard electric attacker, Manectric is pretty decent because it's got its Mega Form. Ampharos is pretty decent because it's got its Mega Form. Shadow Magnezone is obtainable. They've really been pushing Magnemite Shadow rockets lately. So Shadow Magnezone is completely obtainable right now. I don't know for how long, but it's there. Your budget option is regular Magnezone, Electivire, or Luxray. And I include Luxray even though its damage output is pretty low because there was the community day recently, so it's very easy to obtain. Jolteon's been completely phased out. Back in the day, Jolteon was amazing, but don't kid yourself, don't use Jolteon. If you got a good regular Zapdos, and you've got nothing else to use, Zapdos has also been outclassed by easy to obtain things. But in the short run, it's something you could use without, like, if you got a weather boosted one. Now, Ice. Oh, man. Ice is useful. Like, this is what you want to use against grass types, not bug. Like, this is what you need for all those dragons that get put into gyms, especially Garchomp. Oh, man. Especially Garchomp. Your whale for this one is Galarian Darmanitan. I mentioned Darmanitan being pretty easy to obtain and level up. However, the Ice-type one is still very, very new. You may have gotten a good one, but in the long term, it'll drop down to standard. But in the short term, Galarian Darmanitan is going to be whale territory. Avalugg, I'm also listing as a whale just because it's too new. Surprisingly, I would actually say Avalugg is better off as a player versus player attacker than it is a player versus environment attacker. I would put Avalugg below either Shadow Mamoswine or regular Mamoswine currently. We'll see in the long run. I haven't gotten to use one yet. I just haven't evolved any of them yet. I don't like the stats on any of the ones I did find during the event. So I've got no experience to be like, you know what, actually this is pretty good. It knocks things out pretty quickly. So your mileage may vary. Your budget version for Ice is going to be Obama Snow, the Mega one, if you have the Mega Energy. It's pretty easy to get the Mega Energy. There still are quests that give it, but you've got better Megas out there. Glaceon's easy to obtain, and it gets the job done, but no matter what you're using your Ice-type attacker for, by the time you're down to Glaceon, every fire type is better and every fairy type is better. You don't need, like, it's just too fragile and it's just too weak. It's not a glass cannon. It's a glass pistol. Like, it just doesn't get the job done. If you can get a Shadow Weavile, it was very common because it was a rocket shadow. A rocket leader shadow for a while. So you may have a good Shadow Weavile, but normal Weavile is way too weak. Speaking of Weavile, it doesn't fare much better in the Dark type category. For Dark types, that Gyarados, oh man, that Mega Gyarados is fantastic. Mega Absol, also pretty hard to obtain. I would say it's not that you didn't do any during the Halloween event, but there were just other raids that you were probably focusing on. So Mega Absol's there, but also because Absol is just so infrequent a capture. I like that they've put it into more quests so you don't have to use your daily raid pass, but at the point where you're using Mega Absol, just use a different Mega. Shadow Tyranitar again, phenomenal. Although regular Tyranitar has been outclassed. It is not really worthwhile anymore. It's still a very good budget option because they've been making Larvitar more and more accessible. And I have seen a ton of Shadow Larvitar lately, so leveling up that Shadow Tyranitar might be the way to go. That being said, you are absolutely going to need one of those super TMs to get it Smackdown. Without Smackdown, even as a Dark type, you're just not in the right mindset. And you also have to wait for an event where you can TM away Frustration. Frustration Tyranitar is not worthwhile in the slightest. Again, if you got a good one, you're in amazing hands for Zarude. Zarude is phenomenal as a Dark type attacker, and Dark is more useful than Grass. But if you've got a good Zarude, that's one of those times where I'd say, yeah, throw that candy, throw that Stardust into it to get that second attack. You want Zarude as a dual use. Darkrai and Yveltal are also phenomenal Dark type attackers. Your standard Dark type attackers is Mega Houndoom or Shadow Houndoom. Shadow Houndoom is super easy to obtain. And then that Shadow Weavile is actually kind of worthwhile as a Dark type attacker, not that Ice type attacker. From a budget perspective, regular Weavile is okay as dark. Hydreigon is okay as dark. Your Megas and your Shadows for dark types are some of the strongest hitting things in the game. And then once you have just regular versions of them, it tapers off so drastically that they're kind of less worthwhile. And it's not like you're using them for their main typing. Dark type attackers are good because of their secondary typing being dark. Their primary typing is what you really want to be using them for. Put them in those other categories. Have Tyranitar as that rock type attacker that coincidentally can do dark. Have Houndoom as that fire type attacker that can coincidentally do dark. For Psychic, we're looking at more of those older event Pokemon. If you got a Shadow Mewtwo, at least like that was over a year and a half ago. Shadow Mewtwo is exactly what you want for that Psychic type. It's one of those ones where you're going to want to use a Super TM for Psystrike. Although, personally, if you've got a good Mewtwo, I would actually say go the Ice Beam Shadow Ball route. Use that Super TM to get Shadow Ball, not Psystrike. If you got a good Hoopa Unbound, you're in really good hands for our Psychic types. And Shadow Metagross is relatively easy to obtain. Shadow Beldums have been going pretty strong lately. For your standard ones, Shadow Alakazam, although it's been a while since I've seen an Abra. Shadow Exeggutor, Shadow Gardevoir, Shadow Gallade. Gardevoir and Gallade are super easy to obtain as shadows right now. Ralts is very common. And then just your regular Mewtwo. Give it a good Psychic moveset, and you're golden if you've got it. It doesn't even matter which form of Mewtwo you're using, although I would recommend the standard form. Your budget options are the normal Metagross, which is also really easy to obtain. Beldums are not common, but they show up in a lot of events as an uncommon. So they get their rates boosted pretty frequently. Espeon. Finally, we have another Eevee evolution that is actually still relatively relevant. I wouldn't choose it first any day of the week, and Psychic types are not exactly rare, but if you're hurting for a Psychic type, yeah, Espeon will get the job done. I would not recommend a regular Gardevoir or Gallade. Honorable mentions would go to Alakazam and Latios, because you can get them at a reasonably high level, and you can evolve them relatively quickly, especially with Kadabra being one of those trade to evolve Pokemon. Latios does not hold a candle to Latios in the Psychic category. For your Steel types, here's where Metagross really shines. Definitely Super TM it, get its Community Day move. But again, try to get that Shadow one. If you were lucky enough to get a good Zacian, Zamazenta, or Dialga, I'm jealous because I whiffed on all three of them. So currently my Metagross is my Steel attacker. But thankfully I was around for that Community Day up in DC, and so I was able to get just a ton of good ones, and will happily trade plenty of Beldums to anybody who wants them. Hopefully you get a lucky one. Your standard Steel one is Excadrill. I listed it as standard, but your mileage may vary on how hard that is to obtain a good one of. Your budget ones are going to be Empoleon and Bisharp. Bisharp's relatively easy to obtain through the PvP method and through some eggs, depending on what the egg rotation is. And Empoleon's, it's okay. It doesn't have the Steel moveset it needs. If they did another Empoleon Community Day and gave it a good Steel move instead of Hydro Cannon, I'd be very excited. Actually, while I'm mentioning that, I kind of wish the Bulbasaur Day Classic next week was one where they gave it a Poison move instead of doing the same Grass move from several years ago. But personal opinion, I don't think Niantic's going to listen to me. Honorable Steel mentions are Durant. Lately it's been really easy to obtain. Mileage may vary on how easy to obtain. And Lucario. And it's really sad that Durant outperforms Lucario. We all want Lucario to do well. It's one of the top 10 most popular Pokemon from that Google poll a year or two ago, but I don't know why it just doesn't hold a candle to other things around it. Fairy types. So glad when they finally added fairy typing to the fairy types, but very few and far between for your choices. Togekiss. Getting a good Togepi is so luck-based because its hatch rates are just low. Occasionally you'll get a good event, or occasionally you'll get good odds in the 7K baby eggs, but all in all, getting a good Togekiss is a crapshoot. And getting a good one for PvP is just as hard as getting a good one for PvE. Your standard one here is going to be Shadow Gardevoir, or regular Gardevoir, or Sylveon. Sylveon I included in standard because it does enough damage that it's not your budget option, but EV Candy is so easy to obtain that it is a budget one. The other reason I want to put it higher on the list is, unlike other evolutions, taking the time to get its friendship level up can be frustrating. I think you have to get 70 hearts with it, but don't hold me to that number for sure. Your budget fairy type is Granbull, but by the time you're dropping down to Granbull, you should be moving over to ice types for dragons, and Clefable's okay. I'm hoping Klefki is good. I'm really hoping Klefki is good, but it depends entirely on the moveset they give it when they release it. Your ghost types. You're really looking at that Hoopa. In this case, you're not looking at Unbound, you're looking at regular Hoopa, surprisingly. And then Giratina. It has either form. Giratina is going to be fantastic as a ghost type. Your standard set for ghosts, Mega Gengar. I don't see them doing Mega Energy for Gengar anytime soon. That's definitely going to be a Halloween event thing again. So if you didn't get the Mega Energy, you're kind of SOL on Gengar. But regular Gengar does so well as it is as well, that you can just get your friends to trade you a bunch of Haunters and then evolve whichever one comes best, and then evolve the others to get that experience point boost. Shadow Mismagius, I was very surprised, had a really good damage output. And then Chandelure, again, but Chandelure is my top pick here because of that dual typing. You're going to get the use out of it in multiple scenarios. So why not kill two birds with one stone and power something up that instead of powering two separate things up? Shadow Banette I listed as budget, but it's not really obtainable right now. I wouldn't say it's non-existent, but it's just not easy to obtain right now. Regular Mismagius is okay, but unless it's Shadow, it's just not doing enough damage. But then Trevenant and Gorgeist, again, it's event dependent, but like they're free evolved Pokemon if they are traded. So get that friend who played last Halloween to just trade you everything that they still have in their inventory, get a bunch of experience points, and eventually one of them is going to be worth evolving. It's going to be worth keeping around. I wouldn't put a bunch of candy into it. I definitely wouldn't put any Stardust into it. But if they caught it at a level 30 to 35, if they got it weather boosted, fantastic. It can be a good placeholder until you can get that good Gengar. Fighting types. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to skip fighting. I'm going to go to Dragon. And I'm going to come back to fighting last because fighting's important. But your Dragon types. Now these, when you can leave them in gyms, are amazing gym defenders. Yes, Ice can shred through a couple of them, but they're normally paired with Rhyperior in gym defending, so they're definitely something that's worth doing. If you can get a good one, Zekrom, Reshiram, Dialga, Rayquaza, Palkia, Dragonite, Salamence. Dragonite and Salamence specifically in Shadow, though Shadow Dratini has been relatively common recently, so I might actually say Shadow Dragonite could be dropped down to Standard. For your Standard, it's going to be Mega Charizard X, regular Salamence, Asterisk, regular Garchomp, asterisk, regular Dragonite, asterisk. And the reason I put asterisks there is, yes, they are fantastic attackers, but they are all extra weak to ice, so you might not want to put them in Gym Defender as a Gym Defender if you don't know that there's a Rhyperior or a Machamp being left with them. Your budget for dragons are going to be a Loan Executor because it's obtainable in raids, and I kind of put Dragalge, but it's hard to get candy for it, and it's the second worst dragon in the game behind Altaria, so it depends on if they increase the spawns or not, whether or not you're going to want that Dragalge as a temporary dragon attacker. Honorable mention is going to be Haxorus, which also gets an asterisk. Mega Altaria. Honestly, even Mega Altaria is just not worth it, and the amount of candy you have to put into, like, get one for your Dex entry and then forget Altaria exists, unless you're trying to do PvP. PvP Altaria is pretty good. And Kyurem. If you got a good Kyurem, that's great. Don't use it as a dragon type. Don't use it as an ice type. It's actually really bad. All right, and then lastly, the most important Pokemon in the game for doing anything gym attacking is going to be Shadow Machamp. If you can get a good Shadow Machamp, that is absolutely one of the top 5 things to sink a bunch of Stardust and candy into. If you can't get a Shadow Machamp, but you can get a good regular Machamp, sink a bunch of Stardust and candy into it. Machamps are plenty prevalent right now during this event. Anything that's not worth leveling up, you can trade to a friend, and then they can evolve it for free. And they have to pay the 25 to get the Machamp into the Machoke, but the Machamp is free. And, like, that's 1,000 experience points or more. Clearly I like Machamp, and I didn't before Pokemon Go. It's actually really funny. In regular Pokemon, I stayed away from fighting types entirely, but those normal type gym defenders are just so irritating. You need that good Machamp. Your backup of Conkeldurr, it's a little more powerful than Machamp in a lot of matchups, but it's also a lot harder to obtain. Whereas Machamp gets used in a ton of different events. Girder doesn't exactly show up in the wild ever. Lucario. Now, while Lucario was absolutely pathetic as a steel type attacker, as a fighting type attacker, it's decent. Definitely worth putting some effort into if you have one you like. And then Mega Lopunny. Lopunny was listed as one of the best normal types, and that was really sad. But listing it as one of the best fighting types, like, this is something I would actually suggest if you've got the energy using as a Mega Evolution. And it's not exactly hard to obtain a Lopunny. Your budget option will be Shadow Gallade. Don't use a regular Gallade. And Hariyama, but Hariyama has fallen out of favor lately as a budget option because Makuhita is not as prevalent in the wild as it was 6 months ago. And then lastly, our fighting honorable mention is Heracross, which is amazing. It is so good as a fighting type. But getting that candy for it, and even obtaining a decent one, is nigh impossible for a lot of people here. If you can go to southern Florida, great. If you can get out of the country, great. Otherwise, Heracross really is kind of... I like it. Trade for one if you can. And then Breloom. I list Breloom as an honorable mention because its stats on paper are not great, and it is a little bit of a glass cannon. It doesn't have high defense, but I've got one that I've powered up. I got a perfect one, and I powered it up just because I wanted to power up all my perfect Pokemon, and I've been using it a lot lately, and it doesn't keep up with my perfect Machamp, but it keeps up with all my other Machamps pretty well, like the ones that I just stopped at level 40 and didn't start putting extra large candy into. And Shroomish isn't as prevalent anymore, so Breloom might not be as obtainable. But if Shroomish comes back as a common Pokemon again, which I think it will in the spring, when we get that seasonal rotation, Breloom is a good budget option when it's obtainable. Is there anything that I didn't cover that anybody really does want to have mentioned? Alrighty. Thank you guys for coming out. Sunday panels are really rough on everybody. I don't have any energy left from the weekend, and so I'm really glad that you guys were able to join me and give me the opportunity to talk about something clearly I care about. If anybody would like to swap friend codes, I'll meet you at the back. As I said, I send gifts constantly, and I can either list you as, hey, delete once we hit best friend because I'm never going to see you again, or hey, these are the conventions I go to, try to rendezvous with me. We can talk that out. But yeah, you all have a safe trip home, and thank you for coming out.